A female corpse hidden under the bed, an enigmatic identity, an unfathomable crime scene, a missing female tenant. What secret lies behind a strange ultrasound report? Hello everyone, welcome to our channel to watch today's video. One day in February 2015, a strange smell emanated from a single rental apartment in Meizhou City, Guangdong Province. Neighboring tenants all noticed it, and as time passed, the smell grew stronger, eventually permeating the entire alley. As time approached February 28, 2015, the odor became increasingly unbearable. That morning, tenants called the apartment owner, Mr. Zhang, to report the situation. Among them, a tenant living on the third floor reported that the smell seemed to be emanating from a particular room. Not long ago, Mr. Zhang had spread rat poison in the apartment. Could it be the smell of dead rats? But after inspecting the hallway, Mr. Zhang found nothing. With no other options, Mr. Zhang had to call each tenant to check if there was anything unusual inside their rooms. But when he tried to contact the tenant of room 307, he found the phone was turned off. Room 307 is located right in the middle of the third floor of the apartment. In Mr. Zhang's memory, the tenant of this room was a young woman. However, all tenants could be reached except for this woman, whose phone was always unreachable. Unable to contain his confusion, Mr. Zhang called a local locksmith. When they pushed open the door, a pungent smell hit them. It was a rental room of less than 20 square meters, with only one bedroom and one bathroom, and the bedroom could barely accommodate a bed. Inside the room, Mr. Zhang found that the quilt on the bed had been stuffed to the edge under the bed, and the strange smell became stronger the closer one got to under the bed. At this point, Mr. Zhang realized something was wrong. He didn't dare to look closely and hurriedly ran to the first floor to call the police. After the police arrived, they took out the quilt from under the bed and found it covered in bloodstains. Then, peering through the gap under the bed, they vaguely saw something else under there. When they lifted the mattress and bedboard, they found a female corpse inside, which had highly decomposed, with a large number of maggots on the floor around the body. The deceased was a woman, around 25 years old, lying on her back on the floor under the bed. Due to the high degree of decomposition, the face was unrecognizable. The forensic doctor preliminarily estimated that the time of death was about 10 days ago. Next to the corpse's right hand on the floor, a plastic clothes hanger was found, about 90 centimeters long. This hanger was folded and placed next to the corpse. Moreover, a white plastic bag was wrapped around the deceased's neck, with ligature marks in the shape of a hook on the neck and a fracture of the hyoid bone. Therefore, the forensic doctor inferred that the cause of death was mechanical asphyxiation caused by strangulation and constriction of the neck, and there was also a significant blunt force injury to the back of the head. As the scene was examined, the police found some glass fragments similar to beer bottles on the floor of the room, a lot of glass debris in the bathroom, and a blood-stained ashtray on the surface of the dressing table next to the bed. In addition, there were some splashes of blood on the dressing table, and bloodstains of various sizes on the walls around the room. Based on the condition of the scene, the technical personnel analyzed that the murderer should have first used the wine bottle and ashtray to strike the victim's back of the head, then the deceased fell to the ground, and then the murderer continued to hit the deceased with the ashtray, so there were bloodstains splashed by the deceased on the dressing table and cabinet surface next to the bed, and then the murderer strangled the deceased with a clothes hanger and a plastic bag. Beer bottles, ashtrays, plastic bags, and hangers are all daily necessities found in the room. In addition, apart from the door lock, which was opened by the landlord Mr. Zhang with the help of a locksmith, all other doors and windows were intact, showing no signs of damage, and there were no signs of disturbance inside the house. Therefore, the police inferred that it was likely an acquaintance who committed the crime. Considering the tools used, this case is likely a crime of passion, meaning the murderer impulsively picked up items like the ashtray to kill the victim and then covered the body with the quilt on the bed. Room 307 is located in the middle of the third floor, with neighbors on both sides. But all the neighbors have stated that they haven't heard any arguments or sounds of fighting recently. It wasn't until the smell spread that they noticed something was amiss. From this, it appears that the assailant took the victim by surprise in a sudden attack, causing the victim to not have time to call for help. The forensic examination of the body later confirmed this, as no defensive wounds indicating a struggle or resistance were found on other parts of the body. These conclusions have provided direction for the police investigation. However, due to the extended time since death, the corpse's appearance was unrecognizable, and no items indicating the victim's identity were found on the body or in the rental room. According to the registration information with the landlord Mr. Zhang, the female tenant living in room 307 was named Zhonghong, who was also about 25 years old. But Mr. Zhang said that Zhonghong did not usually live here, and his impression of her was not profound. The only thing he remembered clearly was that she always transferred the rent to him on time. Moreover, the corpse was unrecognizable, and Mr. Zhang could not confirm whether the deceased was indeed Zhonghong. Additionally, Zhonghong's phone had been turned off. Through their investigation, the police found that Zhonghong indeed did not often live in this rental room, she likely had another residence. Additionally, due to the high turnover of tenants in such rental rooms and the lack of interaction between them, the residents nearby were not very clear about Zhonghong's identity. Just when the police were at a loss, an inspection of the crime scene revealed a discovery. In the trash can in the room, the police found a crumpled piece of paper, which turned out to be an ultrasound report. The person examined on the report was named Li Meng, a 23-year-old woman who had been checked at Meizhou People's Hospital on February 1, 2015. The examination results showed that this woman named Li Meng was more than a month pregnant. How did this report end up here? Was it left by the deceased? Or was it someone else? Was the deceased the tenant Zhonghong or Li Meng on the report? Or does Li Meng have some connection with the deceased or the murderer? Otherwise, how could this report appear at a murder scene for no reason? However, when asked, Mr. Zhang stated that he did not know Li Meng and had never seen this person in the apartment. At this time, the forensic department reported that through autopsy, they found that the deceased had an enlarged uterus, indicating that it was very likely the deceased was pregnant. Could the deceased possibly be Li Meng on the report? If the deceased is Li Meng, then who is the murderer? Why would Li Meng die in a room rented by someone else? All doubts pointed to the tenant of room 307, Zhonghong. At this moment, Mr. Zhang called Zhonghong and surprisingly got through. When confronted with the police's questions, Zhonghong claimed that she was unfamiliar with the victim found in the rental room and had no knowledge of an individual named Li Meng mentioned in the report. The room was rented not for permanent occupation, but as a temporary haven for her and her child to escape domestic disputes with her husband. Despite her calm demeanor and lack of apparent unease throughout the police investigation, the officers sensed that Zhonghong might be concealing something. Her statements led the police to preliminarily identify the victim as Li Meng, whose name appeared on the report. The police learned from the mobile phone store where Li Meng worked that after the Spring Festival, Li Meng had not returned to work and had been out of contact for more than 10 days. Strangely, even though Li Meng had been missing for so long, her family had not reported it. Soon, the police contacted Li Meng's family, and through DNA comparison, it was confirmed that the deceased was indeed Li Meng. The police found that Li Meng's life was very simple, and her social circle was also very narrow. She had no intersection at all with Zhonghong, the tenant of room 307 where the crime occurred. So how did she get into room 307? During the inquiry, Li Meng's sister mentioned a person. The man mentioned by Li Meng's sister was Li Meng's boyfriend. Just before the Spring Festival, Li Meng's sister had called him to inquire about Li Meng's whereabouts and asked her to come home for the new year. But Li Meng's boyfriend told her sister that she was at his house. When Li Meng's sister asked to speak with Li Meng, her boyfriend said that Li Meng was in a bad mood and didn't want to answer the phone, thus brushing off her sister's call. Through police investigation, the identity of Li Meng's boyfriend has emerged. L.V. Liang, born in 1990, from Meizhou City. What shocked the police even more was that L.V. Liang was actually the husband of the owner of room 307, Zhong Hong. The boyfriend of the deceased and the husband of the tenant turned out to be the same person. The emergence of this clue brought a turning point to the case. But upon hearing this news, Zhong Hong did not seem surprised. It turned out that Zhong Hong and her husband L.V. Liang had been on bad terms for a long time, and since last year, L.V. Liang rarely returned home. And Zhong Hong was aware that her husband had been with other women outside. A pregnant rival and a cheating husband were enough to constitute her motive for murder. So, is Zhong Hong the murderer? But when faced with police questioning, Zhong Hong produced a perfect alibi. It turned out that on February 14, Zhong Hong and her son had left Meizhou to go back to their hometown for the new year. And they had not returned to Meizhou during the time of the crime, let alone visited this rental apartment. To verify Zhong Hong's statement, the police decided to retrieve the surveillance footage from the rental apartment to see when she last entered or left room 307. But since more than 10 days had passed since the crime, and the surveillance footage from the rental apartment only kept recordings for 7 days, the police did not give up, as these 7 days of surveillance footage were one of the few important pieces of evidence they had in hand. By carefully scrutinizing the video second by second, a fleeting dark figure entered the police's line of sight. The surveillance footage showed that on the evening of February 27, 2015, at 9:19 p.m., the day before the police received the report, a man entered room 307. A few minutes later, the man walked out of the room and left the rental house. The police identified the man in the surveillance as Zhong Hong's husband and Li Meng's boyfriend, L.V. Liang. At this time, the smell of the corpse in the rental house had already spread very seriously. Why did he enter room 307 at this time? What did he do inside? Therefore, the police inferred that L.V. Liang had a significant suspicion of committing the crime. Under police questioning, Zhong Hong also told the truth. Before the crime, her husband, L.V. Liang, had borrowed the key to the rental house, claiming that a friend was coming to stay for a few days. Zhong Hong also told the police that the moment she received the call from the landlord, her husband's behavior had already given her an ominous premonition. At that time, L.V. Liang was right next to her. When Zhong Hong answered the phone, L.V. Liang stood up nervously and turned off the room lights. At this point, the case had become clear. With Zhong Hong's cooperation, the police arrested the criminal suspect, L.V. Liang, who was preparing to flee. Subsequently, L.V. Liang confessed to the entire crime process. On the day of the crime, Li Meng, carrying a prepared ultrasound report, came to room 307 to find her boyfriend, L.V. Liang, and told him she was pregnant, urging him to marry her.
她怀孕了，一直说那个结婚的事情。我也有老婆的人，我不知道怎么办。我说叫她给点时间给我，她一直使劲说。
However, the pregnant Li Meng did not know that L.V. Liang was a married man. What Li Meng did not know even more was that the so-called business L.V. Liang had been boasting about to her was entirely a scam. In reality, L.V. Liang was unemployed and idle all day, but he was very face-conscious, often spending money to entertain friends at high-end venues like bars and KTVs. He had no regular income, and all his expenses were maintained by borrowing from loan sharks. For a long time, robbing Peter to pay Paul left L.V. Liang always burdened with huge debts, and he had to juggle between his lover and his wife. On the day of the crime, L.V. Liang received a debt collection text message from one of his creditors, threatening to reveal his true situation to Li Meng if he did not repay the money. Just at this moment, Li Meng appeared in front of him with the report and urged him to get married. Therefore, LV Liang completely broke down. In a fit of anger, LV Liang threw the report into the trash can, picked up the ashtray and beer bottle and knocked Li Meng down, and then strangled Li Meng to death with a plastic rope and a clothes hanger. According to Lu Liang's own testimony, he claimed that he loved Li Meng deeply and had no intention of losing her. However, in a moment of passion, he inadvertently killed Li Meng and then contemplated suicide to join her in death. However, after killing Li Meng, he did not commit suicide. In the surveillance footage, which showed him entering room 307 after the crime, Lu Liang explained that the reason for his return was because he missed Li Meng and wanted to talk to her. However, in fact, LV Liang's actions did not seem to match his words. After the crime, he first transferred the money from the deceased Li Meng's Alipay to his own card, then sold Li Meng's mobile phone, and used the money to pay off his debts. On February 27, his purpose for returning to the crime scene was simply to stuff the quilt under the bed to cover up the increasingly strong smell of the corpse. Although LV Liang, a thoroughgoing liar, has been severely punished by law, for Li Meng, her book of life was cruelly closed just as it was about to turn a new chapter. Her trust in LV Liang, her dreams for her future child, were all mercilessly buried under that dark bed. Her tragedy is not only the disappearance of a young life but also a profound warning to all women about the possible deception and betrayal they may encounter in relationships. Li Meng's story forces us to think, in the world of emotions, how can we discern truth from falsehood and protect ourselves from such profound harm? Does her experience also reflect the insufficiency of society's attention to women's safety and emotional protection? Have we given enough attention and support to prevent similar tragedies from happening again? We encourage our viewers to actively discuss in the comments section. Does Li Meng's case make you have a deeper understanding of deception and betrayal in relationships? In this story, who do you think should bear more responsibility? How can we strengthen society's awareness of women's safety and emotional protection to prevent such tragedies from happening again? Let's explore these issues together. Share your thoughts and feelings. Perhaps, through our discussion, we can find some answers for Li Meng and other women who might be in similar situations. Or at least, learn lessons from this tragedy, so that such tragedies do not happen again. This is the Crime Chronicles channel, where we delve into the truths behind crimes, exploring the complexities of human nature and the justice of law. If you are captivated by our videos, loving the in-depth analysis and compelling storytelling we provide, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. We will continue to work tirelessly to bring you fascinating crime stories.